truth is very, very important. Truthfulness, it's very, very important. Satya or truth is something that we have to strive for all our lives. मेरा नाम परंजॉय गुहा ठाकुर है और मैं अंग्रेजी में बात करूँगा। ये लोक माध्यम यानी कि मीडिया, मास मीडिया की एथिक्स, नीति नैतिकता, इस विषय के ऊपर अर्जुन सिंह महेंद्र मेरे से कहा आप लोगों से बातचीत करने के लिए। Ethics. What is the meaning of this word? And specifically, why is this word, why is this term ethics so important? Though for all of us, and particularly for those who aspire to be a part of the media or in the world of mass communications. The word ethics originates from Greece. The Greek word is ethos, which is often used in English as well. Ethos means character. And ethics, and I use it in the singular sense, has been discussed and debated for centuries and centuries by philosophers, by ordinary citizens, by writers, by politicians, you name them. Why? Because ethics is about choices. It's about the choice between good and evil, black and white, truth and falsehood. What is virtue? What is a vice? What is correct? What is incorrect? And all of these choices pertain to human actions. Ethics is not just about morality, though it could be a part of it. Ethics is also not just about the law or legality, but it could also be a part of it. Journalism, mass communications, is a social practice. The word mass often has a negative class connotation. You say, the ignorant masses, the stupid masses, where a large number of people become like a mob, unthinking mob. And somebody says, go and lynch somebody. And they mindlessly act in a certain manner. But even if that word mass is used in a negative sense, in a class context, when you talk about mass communications, you're talking about the most advanced form of communications, the most difficult form of communications. It's not just a communication between a child and her or his parent or friend. You're talking about people trying to communicate to large numbers of people who come from different social, economic backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, people who speak different languages, and you're trying to reach out to a differentiated, not homogeneous, but a heterogeneous set of people, a plural set of people. And then this is particularly important for those who want to be a part of the media, and it's particularly important for those who are Indians, because arguably India is the most heterogeneous country in the world. I mean, have you ever thought about the fact that, here we're the only country in the world, and if you look at our currency note, just look at the back of this currency note. This is the only currency note that uses 17 languages. But there are 21 languages in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India, and that excludes the language I'm speaking with you in, that is English. Then why are there 17 languages? Because it should be 16, but there are 5 languages which use common scripts. A lot of people think Hindi is India's national language, but the fact is India has 21 national languages. There is a difference between a state language or the language of governance, Raj Bhasha, as opposed to Rashtrabhasha. So when you talk about a diverse, heterogeneous country, mass communications becomes very important. And in this context, ethics becomes very, very important. And let me here flag a few words about which I'm going to talk to you in some detail. And what are these 3 words? Truth or truthfulness. 2, fairness. 3, objectivity. And after I discuss these 3 words, because they are very, very important words, I will come and speak with you a little bit about the social media. When we talk about the media, when we talk about journalism, the word truth is very, very important. Truthfulness, it's very, very important. The father of India's nation, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, he said this word, Satya or truth, is something that we have to strive for all our lives, our entire life. He was a believer. He said, absolute truth, the only absolute truth is God Almighty. Whether you believe in God or not, he said, this word is very difficult to understand. He himself said, I cannot understand. When he wrote a part of his autobiography, he called it a story of his experiments with truth. Across the world, across generations, across civilizations, across the countries and nation states, philosophers have strived to find the true meaning of this word, true meaning of the word truth. What is truth? There are theories and theories. There is a correspondence theory, there is a coherence theory, there is a consensus theory. And this is the realm of philosophy. But just as it's important to at least try and find what the truth is, it's also important to understand what is false or what's a falsehood. Because in journalism, you can be deceived. Somebody can take you for a ride. Somebody can fool you. And they could fool you for various reasons. There could be commercial reasons, there could be political reasons, or it could be just a joke. So, as we try and find what is true or what is not true, it becomes very, very important for each and every one of us to understand that there is something called fact and there is something else called opinion. I am wearing a green shirt. Fact. You don't like my beard? Opinion. My wife also doesn't like my beard. My sister also doesn't like it. So, it's not that the fact is I have a beard. And the opinion is whether you like it or not. So, it's important, all those who want to be a part of the media, all those who want to be in journalism, to be able to understand the difference between opinion and fact. Unfortunately, many of us conflate the two. And especially in this day and age where the social media has proliferated like never before, people often given more importance to opinion than fact. But it is first important to understand fact, because only then can you understand what is fairness and what is objectivity. two other very, very important words. And as I deal with them, I'm going to try and give you a few examples of what is fair and what is unfair, what is truth and what is falsehood, what is subjective and what is objective. When one looks at media ethics, and when any person who wants to be part of the media, wants to become a media professional, she or he has to be not only conversant about the different interpretations and meanings of the word truth. There are two other words that are also very, very important. And these two words are fairness and objectivity. These are difficult words to understand because there are so many different ways they can be interpreted. But nevertheless, it's like all your life you search for the truth, as Gandhiji said. So in your entire career, you have to strive for fairness and objectivity. What is fairness? What is balance? Is it always getting the other side of the story? There's a very famous remark. Here are two people who tell a third person, the journalist. The first person says, it's raining. And the second person says, no, it's not raining. As a journalist, what do you have to do? You have to go out and check for yourself whether it's raining or not. Or do you say, one person says it's raining and the other person says it's not raining. So, what can we verify? What is factually correct? What do you see the world as it actually is? Who are your sources of information that you're attributing to or you're looking at information? Now, when you look at facts and the importance of checking facts, this becomes particularly important in today's day and age of the social media, but we'll come to that in a short while from now. Let me tell you the story of a very, very famous Japanese film. And if you haven't seen it, you must see it. It was made 5 years before I was born. And I'm 66, so it was made in 1950 by a Japanese filmmaker, a very well acclaimed filmmaker called Akira Kurosawa. Kurosawa had made his film based on a short story by another Japanese writer called Ryunosuke Akuta Gawa. I mean, a Japanese will find faults in the way I'm pronouncing his word, and I had to look at my notes. It was a short story called In a Grove. I'll summarize the story for you in a nutshell, and then you should check and see the film yourself. It's a fascinating film, black and white film, but a masterpiece. It's a story, it's a psychological thriller about a soldier, a samurai, who is murdered inside a grove or a forest. And you as an author, you're trying to find out why he was murdered. And you hear different versions of the same story from different people, some of which are not, they don't match. They're contradictory to one another. Each person is speaking from a subjective viewpoint, not objective, but a subjective viewpoint. There is this person, the warrior's wife. There is a monk. There is a bandit. There is a woodcutter. And all of them tell you about the same incident, but from a different perspective. And this is an amazing film because you as the viewer of the film will understand the full story and the real reasons why this soldier was murdered inside a forest after you've heard all the different versions. This is the role of a journalist. She or he has to bridge the gap between those who know and those who don't, between the specialist and the layperson. And in this endeavor, in this journey, you have to learn how to be balanced, fair, and objective. Now, this is not easy at all. If I ask you, I've been speaking to you for the last several minutes, if I asked you, can you summarize what I've said in about 200 words? People will put different phrases and sentences right on top. And what they consider less important points at the bottom. The headline could be different. But we select facts. All of us have our own biases. All of us have our preconceived notions about what is fact and what is not fact, what is opinion and what is not opinion. But as a good journalist, as a good media professional, you have to learn how to select information. Out of a huge volume of information, out of this information overload that's given to you, what is the essence? What is the most important? How do you tell a story, and how do you tell a story well? And today, in the day and age of the social media, we are seeing a lot of untruths, a lot of falsehoods, a lot of half-truths, a lot of misinformation, a lot of disinformation. What's the difference? You can be genuinely misinformed. You may think I'm 65, but I'm actually 66. But if you know that I'm 66 and say that I'm 65, you are indulging in disinformation, deliberately spreading untruth or falsehood. Example. A few years ago, a relative of mine came to me with a little message. I said, Mosaji, Mosaji. That's what he calls me. He says, not all Muslims are not terrorists, but all terrorists are Muslim. I said, who told you this? I don't think this is correct. There could be terrorists irrespective of that person's religious belief or faith. And he said, I came across this message on WhatsApp. Today, more and more people are getting influenced by fake, false, misinformation, disinformation. The well-known television anchor from NDTV India, Ravish Kumar, talks about an entire generation of people who've been educated in WhatsApp University. They believe everything they read on that little screen of theirs. You who are privileged to get good quality education and not studying in WhatsApp University, you must learn to search for the truth in a fair manner, santulan ke saath, with objectivity, vastunishtata, and that will make you a good professional. And to understand why ethics has become even more important in today's day and age of the social media of WhatsApp, Facebook, Google, you will have to understand what the social media is doing to you, your life, your addiction to your gadget. The printing press was invented by Gutenberg in Germany in the middle of the 15th century. We've come a long way from that. The social media has changed the lives of young people and old people and humanity as a whole like never before. And I'm going to tell you why. The internet or the World Wide Web has changed human society in a way which we could never have imagined. India has the second highest population among all countries in the world. Only the People's Republic of China has a higher population. And that is going to change in the next coming years. There are going to be more people in India than in China. But certainly between India and China, you have 40% of the world's population. And therefore, it's not surprising that India has the second highest number of internet users. But the rate at which the number of users has grown is truly dramatic and unprecedented. Do you know that in most parts of India, there are more SIMs than human beings. What is a SIM? SIM. You know that little chip that you put inside your mobile phone? SIM stands for Subscriber Identity Module. India, as we talk towards the end of 2021, has a population in excess of 1.35 billion or 135 crore. And if you look at the figures of the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, you'll find that there are more than 1.15 billion or over 115 crore SIMs in this country. Somewhere in the region of 750 million, 75 crore handsets. ये जो हाथ में है आपकी चलायमान दूरभाष यंत्र, mobile telephone instrument. Now this is an amazing change that has happened and which many of us could not have anticipated. The number of users of WhatsApp in India was just 250 million at the end of 2018. Today, it is not just the highest in the world, the number of users of WhatsApp are over 500 million. It's not I, but that's what they claim. Similarly, the number of users of Facebook, the number of users of Instagram, we are among the highest in the world, but there's a reason for that, because in China, Facebook can't operate. And Facebook is all, I mean, when you talk about Facebook, you're talking about WhatsApp, you're talking about Instagram. Now, India's demographic profile is such that the median age, that means the maximum number of people in this country, are of the age of 27. And about half the population of this country is below the age of 26. That makes the Indian population particularly friendly to users of the internet. And you know, the social media penetration in this country is amazing, amazing. More than half the population, more than half of India's population regularly using the internet. And then this was a very, very small proportion. Even in 2015, I'm talking about end to 2021, in 2015, just a little over 1 out of 4 Indians were using the internet. And now it's over half, and soon it's going to be near 2/3. And there is predictably a huge spike in the use of social media. And yes, there is a digital divide. Of course, there is a digital divide. There is also a demographic divide, because 3/4 of the users of internet in this country are below the age of 35. Now, why have I rattled off all these figures? Because in this day and age of the internet, there is so much of misinformation, disinformation, fake, false information that is circulated, which you, as media practitioners, as users of the media, as future journalists, as persons working in the media, you have to be aware of. Because people are getting fooled. It's not that there was no propaganda in the past. It's not as if there was no false news in the past. But the net and the social media has enabled people to reach out to large numbers of people in a very short period of time. The speed and the scale is unprecedented in the history of humankind, which becomes that much more important for you to realize. You should not sacrifice, if you are putting out what you believe is factual information and not just any old opinion, do not sacrifice accuracy and truthfulness for speed. So I'm going back to the words that I use to talk to you about. Words like truthfulness, words like fairness, words like objectiveness. These are very, very important. These are giant digital monopolies. I mean, these are the biggest corporate conglomerates on the planet. As I mentioned, when you talk about Facebook, you're not just talking about the social media platform, you're talking about WhatsApp, you're talking about Instagram. When you're talking about Google, you're not just talking about Google Drive and Google Maps and the search engine, you're also talking about YouTube. And you also, the company that holds that is the owner of Google, Alphabet, is also owning the Android operating system, where more than 3/4 of all the mobile phones in the world are using Android operating systems. When you look at Amazon, when you look at, these are giant corporate conglomerates, and they have operate across the world. And therefore, you as a user, you as an individual, remember that you have to be aware. Now, it's interesting. I came across a very interesting aspect of life, and I learned a lot from a film which I will strongly recommend that each and every one of you watch. It's available on Netflix. It's a long documentary. It's called The Social Dilemma. How young people have become addicted. They've become addicted to this gadget. They can't live without it. Human relations have been sometimes spoilt and destroyed by this addiction. Leave your phone at home and take a long walk in a park, climb a hill, go for a swim. Don't be addicted to anything. It's interesting why. Because there are only two categories of business persons, providers of services, enterprises, if you want to call them that describe their consumers as users. One is the social media, and the other is those who provide drugs, the drug pusher. And this is something I learned from this film called The Social Dilemma. I'll strongly recommend that you who are listening to me watch this film, because it's not only going to tell you a lot about the world, it's going to tell you a lot about yourself. If you want to be a media professional, if you want to be a journalist, remember that what you're taught in your college, in your educational institution, could give you a lot of hope, a lot of idealism. And don't be disappointed when you find that the reality in the workplace is very, very different. I use an analogy, no offense meant to anybody, when I compare my friends in the media and journalists to dogs. I'm a dog lover, and I think dogs are sometimes better than some human beings I've known. So, you're often taught, dog bites man, no news. If man bites dog, that becomes news, because that's something out of the ordinary, extraordinary, bizarre, weird. But wait, a lot depends on who the dog bites. Suppose the dog bites Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Suppose the dog bites Priyanka Chopra or Amitabh Bachchan. You can be sure it will become newsworthy. No jokes aside, there are dogs and there are dogs. Journalists are often described as watchdogs of society, and there are watchdogs and there are watchdogs. There are dogs that can only bark but cannot bite. But if at 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning, a burglar has come to steal something, and the dog starts barking loudly, and the burglar runs away, then the dog has done its job. The burglar doesn't know that this dog can only bark but cannot bite. There are dogs and there are dogs. Have you heard of a phrase called the Godi media? Ravish Kumar uses it quite a bit. Godi, lap. There are dogs that do not bite, do not bark. They sit on your lap very quietly. They'll wag their tail. Pooch late rahenge. You can stroke the dog and the dog won't move a bit. Especially if the lap belongs to a powerful politician, a mafia don, a big military general, a top government officer, the dog is very, very quiet. The lapdog, not a watchdog. The Godi media, not the real media. But there are also intelligent guide dogs that are dogs that can help a visually challenged person, a blind person, cross a road. There are dogs that can sniff and sniff out drugs or explosive substances from a pile of luggage. Have you heard about the Saint Bernard dogs that rescue people who are caught in a snow blizzard? Well, ask yourself, what kind of a media professional do you want to be? What kind of a journalism you want? What kind of journalism do you want to practice? What kind of journalist do you want to be? What kind of a dog would you like to be? Wait. And that is why it's important to understand ethics, and why ethics is important. Why words like truthfulness, fairness, and objectivity are very, very important for all those who want to be a part of the mass media.